Everybody, my name is Joost van der Heijden. I'm the head of marketing for Asia at Airbus. India is a strategic country for Airbus. From a commercial point of view, as we continue to see India as one of the fastest growing aviation markets in the world, as well as from an industrial cooperation point of view. So that's why this afternoon we would like to give you two updates. The first one by myself on the market, how we see the aviation market in India today and how we see it developing going forward, and an update on the Airbus cooperation with India, which will be done by Dwarka. So let's move to the market update for India. This is the Airbus product line as it is today. I think most of you will be familiar with it. It covers the full capacity range from 100 to more than 500 seats, with the single-aisle A320 family, the in-service mid-size wide-body A330 family, the all-new generation XWB family, also a mid-size wide-body aircraft, and of course the A380. Until the end of February, we have received over 13,800 firm orders for our aircraft, out of which over 8,300 have been delivered to nearly 400 operators around the world, leaving us with the very healthy backlog of still over 5,500 aircraft, which at current production rates represents more than 8 years of full production. And 2013 was a record year for Airbus. We received 1,619 new firm orders on a gross order basis and 1,503 orders on a net basis, both of which were industry records. We delivered 626 Airbus aircraft in 2013, which is more than we ever delivered before. And we ended the year with an industry record backlog of 5,559 aircraft. So a very strong demand for new aircraft, and one of the reasons for that is that aviation is key for the world economy. Globally, aviation's impact on the economy, according to a study done in 2012, is put at $2.2 trillion. If aviation were a country, it would rank 19th in the world in terms of GDP size. And overall, aviation supports around 3.5% of the world GDP and 56.6 million jobs. So we're very proud to be a part of this industry, and we're very proud of the strong partnerships that we have with carriers in India. Indigo, which is operating the A320, Air India operating the A320 family as well as the A330, Jet Airways operating the A330, and Go Air operating the A320. Today, over 170 Airbus aircraft in service in India, and we expect this number to increase over the coming years as we continue to deliver aircraft to our current operators, and as we see new carriers entering the market, such as Tata together with S.A.S. and Tata together with AirAsia, which will start operations with Airbus A320 aircraft. So let's move to the market forecast part of the presentation. Historically, air traffic has doubled every 15 years, and we expect it to double again in the next 15 years, growing at an average annual rate of 4.7%. This growth results in a demand for around 29,230 new passenger and freighter aircraft over the coming 20 years worldwide, consisting of more than 20,000 single-aisle aircraft, such as the A320 family, over 7,200 mid-size wide-body aircraft such as the A330 and the A350, and over 1,700 very large aircraft such as the A380, for a combined market value of 4.4 trillion US dollars. And what is important to note is that more than a third of this worldwide demand over the coming 20 years, that is close to 11,000 aircraft, will be required by carriers in Asia Pacific. And that is because Asia Pacific will continue to drive air traffic growth in the world. Already the biggest region for air traffic in the world today. It will extend its lead over Europe and the US in the coming years, growing to 34% of the world's RPKs by 2032, growing at an average annual rate of 5.5%, which is well above the world average already. But one of the key drivers for air traffic growth in Asia Pacific will be India. In fact, we see India domestic as the fastest growing market in the GMF, in the global market forecast, growing at an average annual rate of around 10% for the coming 20 years, growing to become the world's third biggest domestic aviation market. Overall, traffic growth to and from and within India will grow at an average annual rate of 8.6% over the coming 20 years, so that's domestic and international combined, which is nearly double the world's average, and which will mean that the air traffic market in India over the next 20 years will grow by a factor of 5. It will quintuple. One of the key drivers for air traffic growth around the world and in Asia, and of course in India, is economic growth. India is expected to continue to be among the world's leading economies in terms of economic growth. That will drive an increasing middle class, that is to say the part of the population with disposable household income giving access to air travel. Worldwide, this middle class today is just above 2 billion people. It will grow over the next 20 years to more than 5 billion people, and it will especially grow in Asia Pacific, where it will quadruple from just over 850 million people today to 3.5 billion people by 2032. And a lot of those people will be in India. And to illustrate the importance of a growing income for air travel growth, we would like to show this chart, which is showing the correlation between GDP, gross domestic product per capita on the horizontal axis, and the trips per capita on the vertical axis. And what we can see is that still in India, trips per capita today is relatively low compared to the rest of the world at 0.05. That means that today, on average, 1 in 20 people in India is traveling by air. When you compare that, for example, to China, which has a similar population, there the number is 1 in 4 people traveling by air. So already this shows the enormous potential that continues to exist in India to grow air travel. As well, what you can see when you look at the curve, you see that India is at the vertical part, which means that only a small increase in disposable income per capita will lead to a very strong increase in air traffic growth. And that is fundamental for our confidence in the Indian market. Over the next 20 years, we expect the number of trips per capita in India to grow 5-fold, from 0.05 today to 0.25 in 2032. And after that, there will be a continuing strong potential for growth if you imagine that in Europe and the US, the number of trips per capita is actually 1.5 to 2. So strong potential for air traffic growth in India, leading to a demand for 1,200 191 new passenger and freight aircraft for India, according to our most recent global market forecast, consisting of over 900 single-aisle aircraft, more than 300 twin-aisle aircraft, and 56 very large aircraft like the A380, for a combined market value of 190 billion US dollars. So what you can see is that, of course, we continue to see strong demand in India in the single-aisle category, but what is very interesting to note as well is that we see a strong growth in the share of wide-body aircraft in the fleet of the Indian carriers, as they will expand internationally and also have to cope with the growth of some of the domestic routes that are already very high density today, and where wide-body aircraft will be the most efficient way to grow. Wide-body share of Indian carriers' fleet will grow by a factor of 2.5, from 15% today to more than 35% in 2032. So of course at Airbus we feel we have the right aircraft to help Indian carriers to accommodate this growth in the coming years. In the single-aisle segment, the A320 family, which is already the fastest selling aircraft program in aviation history. Until the end of February, more than 10,200 firm orders for the A320 family program. Nearly 6,000 A320 family aircraft have been delivered, and we still have a backlog of more than 4,200 aircraft. Continued strong demand for the current A320, the so-called A320ceo. We received 377 orders for ceo last year, and we still have more than 1,600 ceos to deliver. The neo backlog made up the rest of the around 1,250 A320 family orders that we received last year, and the neo backlog now stands at more than 2,600 aircraft. So the A320neo, which combines the new wingtip devices on the A320 family, the sharklets with new generation high bypass ratio engines from CFM and Pratt & Whitney, is well on track to enter service in the fourth quarter of next year. When it enters service, it will bring 15% fuel efficiency improvement compared to the current A320, and for Indian carriers, for example, that will mean $2 million in fuel cost saved for every aircraft every year. In addition, of course, the A320neo will continue to be the most comfortable single aisle in the sky. 7 inches wider fuselage than the 737, allowing carriers to offer wider seats, wider aisles, for more comfort for passengers and faster turnaround times. Apart from the sharklets and the engines, we're actually changing very little to the airframe, which means that we'll continue to see a very high degree of commonality between the A320neo and the A320ceo on the airframe side, which will allow for a smooth entry into service. The specific parts for the neo are arriving at the final assembly line in Toulouse at the moment. Final assembly will start very soon, and we're very well on track for the entry into service of the neo in 2015. Versus our competitor, the 737 MAX, the A320neo is clearly the preferred market option. The A320neo in this segment has gained 60% of the market worldwide. 60% of the market worldwide thanks to its better fuel efficiency, its wider cabin, its more advanced technology. What's maybe even more important than the market share is that the A320neo has gained around double the number of customers compared to the 737 MAX. That means double the number of decisions, double the number of carriers that looked at the two aircraft and decided that the neo was the better plane. And in India, of course, Indigo and GoAir have ordered the A320 Neo, and even if we consider yesterday's announcement from our competitor, the A320 Neo market share in India continues to be more than 80%. Very strong performance in 2013 of the A321, the largest member of the A320 family. In 2013, we saw over 600 A321 orders and type conversions for the A321, which was unprecedented. The majority of these are direct A321 orders, around 40% of the total number of single aisles of A320 family ordered in 2013. We see the A321 as becoming more and more important worldwide and in India, as carriers are seeing traffic growth, so need higher capacity, and to reduce seat mile cost in a more and more competitive marketplace. And the A321 offers unbeatable seat mile cost already compared to its competitor today, and will improve this position going forward, as with the Airbus cabin flex option on the A321. Seat count can actually be improved to a maximum of 236 seats compared to 220 today. In the wide-body segment, the A330 continues to be very successful. More than 1,300 orders in total, more than 1,000 deliveries. We continue to have more than 250 A330s in the backlog. Many thought that the sales of the A330 would slow down after the launch of the 787 in 2004, but nothing has been less true. The A330 sales have accelerated, and actually we received firm A330 orders for 869 aircraft since the launch of the 787. That's 2/3 of the total A330 order book. Some reasons for the continued success of the A330. It continues to be the most efficient wide-body twin in the sky today. Compared to the 787 on the total operating cost basis, it offers 6% lower cost, very high reliability at 99.4%, and we continue to make the aircraft better, looking at ways to improve fuel efficiency, to reduce the weight of the aircraft, to improve its capability, such with the 242-ton max takeoff weight version that will increase the range capability of the aircraft, combined with a fuel efficiency improvement, entering service in 2015. And we're also working on a dedicated regional version of the A330, which will bring unbeatable seat mile cost on short-haul markets. What we're doing is we are offering the A330 with a lower maximum takeoff weight, which will reduce landing and navigation fees, an optimized thrust of the engine. Instead of the 72K today, we'll offer 64 to 68K engines, which will optimize the engine maintenance cost. And we are working on the cabin to maximize the revenue of the aircraft on shorter sectors, and also working on the specification and the customization to keep the cost down. So a very attractive aircraft for carriers in Asia and also in India to maximize profitability on major routes at the lowest seat mile cost. Coping with growth often in environments with infrastructure constraints, and doing this in a very reliable way. The A350 received 239 new orders in 2013, bringing the total order book for the A350 XWB family, which consists of the A350 800, the 900, and the 1000, to more than 800 aircraft, 824 to be precise, from 40 customers. When it enters service later this year, it will bring 25% lower operating cost compared to the 777, with our signature 18-inch seat width comfort in economy, more comfortable than the competition, and because the A350 family will cover the full market segment from around 250 to 400 seats, airlines can cover this market segment with a single new generation family. So the A350 is in flight test today. It's in flight test at the moment. It's going very well. We have completed 50% of the flight test campaign. We've done more than 1,200 flight hours with the A350 as planned, and we now have 4 out of 5 test aircraft flying since MSN2, which is the first test aircraft with a full cabin installed, and MSN4 took to the skies on the 26th of February of this year as planned. So in fact, on the 350, we've really made a lot of efforts. We've done a lot of early testing and verification to ensure a smooth production and a mature aircraft at entry into service. And we're seeing the results of those efforts now in the flight test program. So the aircraft is fully on track to enter service later this year with its launch customer, Qatar Airways. Moving to the last part of the presentation, the A380 received 70 new orders in recent months, bringing the total order book for the A380 to 324 aircraft. We've delivered 124 A380s to 10 operators today. It's already transported 55 million passengers around the world. It's really a very common sight now at the world's major airports and on the world's major routes. An A380 takes off or lands every 5 minutes. The latest order that we received for the A380 was a 20 aircraft order from Amedeo, operating lessor, the former Doric. And that means that we now have a A380 lease solution for airlines that require some more flexibility. Now, of course, we're very glad that the A380 has now been approved for operations in India. We feel it will be a very important aircraft for India. It will allow more people to travel. It will stimulate not only air traffic growth but also economic growth, as it will bring more tourists, more business people, allow for more trade. The A380 is a very suitable aircraft for the Indian market. In India we see some of the biggest population centers in the world, some of the highest growth rates on international markets, and already today the passenger volumes on the largest Indian international routes are bigger than quite a few of the routes that are already operated by the A380 around the world. So the volumes are there in India today for the A380, and with the strong traffic growth we see the number of A380 routes for the A380 in India rapidly increasing. In fact, we see the A380 as the only aircraft that will be able to cope with the strong growth on the largest Indian international routes in the coming years. To operators, it will bring the lowest possible unit cost, also giving more flexibility to the airlines to offer more affordable fares while maximizing revenue. And to the Indian travelers, it will bring the unique new A380 travel experience. It is the most spacious, the quietest, most comfortable aircraft in the sky. Wherever it goes, passengers love it. We're sure that will be the case in India today. The aircraft is here at the show. It's here until Friday. If you haven't seen it yet, go and have a look. It looks great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joost. And you finished off with the right note on the A380. So people, you might have seen the A380, but what I will do now is to just show you in 2 minutes how an A380 is put together. course, in real life, it takes a little longer than that. Justin was telling me, I need to keep my presentation in at the same time as it takes to show that particular video. I'll try and do my best, Justin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What I will do is in the next 20 minutes or so, talk to you about the cooperation projects we have in the country. The cooperation with India for Airbus started 40 years ago with the delivery of the first A300 in 1976. And from then on, we have moved from strength to strength, both from a market perspective as well as the footprint point of view as well. So last year, what we did is we took the strategic decision to create Airbus India, or full form Airbus India Operations Private Limited, because India is a strategic market, as you said, and also it's a strategic country for us for the footprint as well. Why are we creating Airbus India, and why are we creating it now? The whole idea is to improve our governance, to have clear governance for all the Airbus operational activities in the country, and Airbus India will act as a one-stop shop for our customers, partners, as well as stakeholders in the country. Moreover, what it will also provide is that it will provide a solid foundation for us to grow in the country. If you want to do a joint venture or acquisition in the future, then that gives us the necessary framework for us to move forward. And Airbus India will be spread across Bangalore, Mumbai and Delhi. Mumbai and Delhi, mainly the customer-facing operational activities. So going back to the cooperation projects in India, our cooperation in India is called as the Airbus 6 Pillars of Cooperation. Probably some of you know this already. Our first pillar of cooperation is engineering. Okay. In engineering, in 2007, we started our own captive center, and that's based in Bangalore. We do high-end design and analysis activity in this center, and this center currently has about 350 people, including subcontractors who are co-located with us there, and it'll grow to 450 in the coming years. The second pillar of cooperation is the training. That is the maintenance training as well as pilot training. On the maintenance training, we provide the maintenance training ourselves in-house. And in the pilot training, we cooperate with CAE and also with Interglobe, and I'll talk to you about that in the coming slides. On aerostructure design and build, that's our third pillar. This is where we have made actually good progress. In the last 6 to 7 years, we've slowly but steadily worked with a lot of companies, and we do a lot with them as well, which I will show you in the coming slides. The fourth pillar, which is engineering and information system services. This is an area, we started our first work in this area in 2007 and 2008, and we have established strategic partnership in this area as well with a couple of companies in India. The fifth pillar of cooperation is R&T. On the research and technology area, we are initiating projects with universities and national labs like Indian Institute of Science and NAL. We are in discussions with them on R&T projects. But what I would like to highlight in that pillar of cooperation is that we have set up an Emerging Technologies and Concepts group in India. This was earlier called as Innovation Cell. It started about 2 years ago. And we have a team in Bangalore, and we also have a team in Toulouse and in Hamburg. What does that actually team do? They look at innovative ways of doing things. That is, they look at other sectors, whether it's telecommunications or IT, look at the innovative ideas, and then bring them to aerospace, and then try and see whether they could apply that across our aircraft programs. Sometimes these are disruptive technologies as well. What I'm proud to say is that the person who is heading up the center in Bangalore is the person who is heading up for Toulouse and Hamburg. That is, globally, he's heading up the Emerging Technologies and Concepts group within Airbus Engineering. The last pillar, there are a lot of other initiatives, and I clubbed that into other Airbus initiatives. MRO, we don't do MRO ourselves, but at our parent company level, there were several MRO initiatives in the country, but we are committed to set up a partnership in the country to have MRO for Airbus aircraft in India. In terms of the SPAS Center, again at our group level, we have set up a joint venture in Mumbai for SPAS for the Airbus A320 aircraft program as well. That's up and running at this point in time. In terms of university partnerships, we have several university partnerships running, and I'd just like to highlight one of them. It is called the Airbus University Board, and the whole purpose of that is to collaborate with universities around the world, both in order to do research, try and work out on projects, and in general, to really bring the industry and academics closer in terms of the curriculum, the aerospace curriculum. In India, we've chosen to partner with Indian Institute of Science. And on a different note, what we also do is we partner with Indian Institute of Management. We've sponsored a chair at Indian Institute of Management for supply chain management, and we also sponsor research projects, PhD students, to work on topics which are mutually beneficial for IIM Bangalore as well as for Airbus Group. The next point I want to highlight is Aerospace MBA. Probably you've already seen the press release we made this morning. What Airbus is doing here is it's not only working with aerospace companies in engineering and manufacturing, but also what we are doing is we are cooperating in the field of aviation education. So we are sponsoring Toulouse Business School to set up Aerospace MBA in the country. That'll be the first Aerospace MBA in the country, and they will partner with Indian Institute of Management to do this Aerospace MBA from next year onwards. If you need more details on that, we have a press release. If you have not taken it, please, you can collect that at the end. Lastly, we also have an India Biodiversity Program. This is something which we work with the local community. I will talk about that in more detail. What I will do in the next 10 slides or so is to talk about the first 4 pillars of cooperation in more detail. Engineering. As I mentioned earlier, we have our Airbus India Engineering, which is based in Bangalore. And in this center, we work across several aircraft programs, even though I show an example of A350 there, but the work which we do are across different aircraft programs. We work in areas like avionics, loads, system simulation, structures. The reason why I'm highlighting them is to say this is not an IT center, but this is an engineering center which works on engineering activity, which is what we do in Airbus. Just to show you an example of what we do on A380, again in A380 as well, we work on several areas, especially in avionics, software, and system testing. That's a key area we focus on for A380 at our center. Moving on the training side, as I mentioned earlier, the Airbus Training Center, or Airbus Training India as we call it, it focuses on providing maintenance training. And it's an EASA Part 147 maintenance training organization, and we have training classrooms in Bangalore where our customers come, airlines from India, as well as airlines from the Far East, as well as from the Middle East. They are coming there. We have conducted over 200 courses, and we have trained about 1,700 plus people in this training facility. I'd just like to mention that when we started this in 2007, our focus was mainly to provide training for the airlines in the country, in India. But it's become very attractive that we are able to cater to our customers, not only in India, but also in the Far East and in the Middle East as well. Coming back to flight training. In flight training in 2008, we cooperated with CAE in Bangalore to set up a training facility. CAE, they provide the simulator and the infrastructure, and Airbus provides the coursework and also the trainers as needed. And we also set up a second training center in cooperation with CAE, Interglobe, and Airbus in Greater Noida 2 years ago in 2012, and it's been in operation since 2013. Between these 2 training centers, we can train up to 1,000 pilots a year. Apart from that, what we also do in this organization is to provide flight operation support. We work with airlines, but we also work very closely with Airport Authorities of India, as well as the DGCA, to conduct courses in safety, flight safety, performance-based navigation, electronic flight back, air traffic management, and so on and so forth. And that's been very, very much appreciated by the Indian government. Moving on. At Aerostructure Design and Build, as I mentioned earlier, this is an area where we have made good progress. If I have to simply explain the strategy, what we follow here, what we do is we select a small group of companies with whom we work directly, And we work with them to actually help them to develop. And we also work with our partners in the West, and who sometimes they have their relationship with Indian companies, or we encourage them to partner with Indian companies as well. So there is a two-pronged approach, direct approach as well as an indirect approach. What I would like you to do is for a minute to step back and then look at Indian civil aerospace in terms of the companies. If you look at it, there are many companies in India who work in civil aerospace, at least in the recent past. If you plot them in a graph of design on one side or engineering on one side and manufacturing, there are a lot of companies who are on the engineering or on the design value chain. These companies have come from an engineering services background, maybe from an IT services in the past, they've come into engineering services. Only in the last, say, 6 to 7 years, private sector companies have started actually coming into manufacturing. So if you look at 10 years ago, it was mainly the public sector companies, HAL, NAL, and a few others who were doing manufacturing. And 6 to 7 years ago, we were sitting down with the private sector companies in India. At that time, they only had PowerPoint slides, to show to us saying, this is what we want to do. And we've been working with them constantly, and today they've all set up the facility, and they're also working for Airbus in terms of making parts and assemblies. Going into the future, what we are doing is we are working with them because some of them have aspirations to become mature design and build partners for aerospace OEMs in the future. And we would like that as well, because we are looking to have mature design and build partners from the country as well. And that's the direction we are going. Looking at, again, the A320, you heard from used, that's one of our popular aircraft programs. There are a lot of companies, from India who make parts, assemblies for this program. If you look at HAL makes 50% of the forward passenger doors for the single-aisle program. They've delivered more than 4,600 doors. That's more than for 2,300 aircraft. So if you look at 2,300 aircraft flying in the sky, they have HAL doors. And if you look at Dynamatic here, Dynamatic, they are partnered with Spirit Aero, our European partner, to make flat track beams. If you have sat next to the window, if you look at the wing, when the aircraft takes off or lands, you see the flaps moving back and forth. They move on something called the flap track. It's very critical assembly, because if that doesn't work, it affects your lift and your braking as well. For every single aircraft of the single-aisle family, these flat track beams are made in Bangalore at Dynamatics. So they make 6 per aircraft, and they make it 42 every month. So you can do the math, and they've delivered more than 10,000 of these flat track beams over the last 3 years. If I move to A380 as well, again, there are a lot of suppliers who work on A380 as well, making parts as well as assemblies there. If I take the example of Tata's, TAML, they make composite parts for A380, and they do that for 350 as well. But then one part which I want to highlight here is that Goodrich, which is called UTAS, they make a critical part for us. I'll just show that to you, that they make the evacuation slides for the A380. So if you look at these evacuation slides, there are 8 such slides, and that they are critical. Not that we use them every day, but they are critical assemblies, and all of them, that 16 of them, are made from Bangalore, from Goodrich or UTAS. They not only make this for the A380 program, but they also make that for our long range, that is the 330 program as well. So there are many companies from India who started working across the Airbus aircraft program, and we are working with them, have a development plan to actually move on from there. Coming back to the 4th pillar, which is the engineering and information systems, I talked to you about the strategy on the manufacturing. On the engineering is very similar. We work with some companies directly, same in ICT as well, or information systems. And for some companies, what we do is that we work with our European and American partners and then ask them to work with Indian companies too. That strategy remains the same. With 2 companies, we have set up dedicated centers. Now with CADIS and Quest, what we have done is we have set up dedicated centers, one for fuselage, that is with CADIS, and one for wing and pylon with Quest. And each of these centers have 150 engineers today, and they will grow to about 250 in the coming years. This work is clearly different from what we do in our own engineering center, because these are activities we buy from our suppliers in Europe, and that's what we are doing in India too. So moving on, in terms of the other initiatives, I talked to you about the biodiversity program in India briefly. Wherever we are in the world, when we have a footprint, we try and work with the local community in order to really help improve the livelihood there. What we are doing here is we initiated this biodiversity program as part of our Airbus Corporate Foundation, and this was the biggest Airbus Corporate Foundation project we initiated 4 years ago. And this is done in partnership with the Ministry of Environment, with the Center for Tribal and Rural Development, and United Nations as well. Okay. And what we have done is we have taken up a few villages in the Nilgiris biosphere. And what we do is actually Airbus employees go there and work with the local community in order to really create biogas plants. As part of the package, we even buy and give cows to the families. The whole purpose is we educate them on using the fossil fuel and alternative energies as well. So at the end, they get the biogas plants from where they can get the energy for their cooking. They do not have to go to the forest to cut the trees, and overall it helps on the biodiversity as well. So 18,000 man-hours has been spent by the Airbus employees from around the world going and working on such projects, and it has saved several hundred metric tons of CO2 emission. Just to conclude, to say that we've been working with more than about 30 companies in India, directly or indirectly, and of 8 or 9 of them, we work directly as well. And in terms of our cooperation with engineering and manufacturing companies, today, more than about 5,000 people work across the Airbus supply chain and across different Airbus aircraft programs as well. The turnover generated last year, that is the global sourcing from India. It's not what we do in terms of procurement here. It's from Airbus in Europe procuring in India. It's 250 million euro, or about $300 million. It started about $25 million in 2006, and we have grown significantly in that area as well. Airbus India Engineering, as I mentioned earlier, we have about 350 people. We will grow to about 450 in the coming years. With companies on the manufacturing side, with HAL, they make 50% of our forward passenger doors. That's 4,600 plus doors they have delivered. And I'm proud to say that every A320 family aircraft is partly made in India. If you take the example of the flat track beams, as I said, for every single aircraft, these flat track beams are made in India. Lastly, Airbus is sponsoring an aerospace MBA program that is sponsoring the Toulouse Business School, who are partnering with IIM Bangalore in order to introduce this program next year. So with Airbus India, what we'll be able to do is to support all these initiatives and to give a one-stop shop, a clear focus for our customers, stakeholders, and partners as well. As you said, A380 landed in India first a few years ago. There are a lot of companies who are working on the A380, and with the great decision the government has made, we hope that these people will be able to fly in and out of India soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dwarka. Now I'll open up the floor to the Q&A. And just before that, in the press kits that you were given in the white folder, there are press releases for all the announcements we've had during the show. So you have everything in there. Now let's open up the floor to the questions. There are 2 floating mics. Who's first? And please say your name and your publication.
Hi, this is Sanjay from Mint newspaper. I just want to know, what is the previous forecast? For last year, how much was it?
The last time we presented the global market forecast in India, the India-specific numbers, was at the last Hyderabad Air Show in 2012. Since then, the number of aircraft has gone up. We have 248 more aircraft in our forecast this time than in 2012.
which is 143 worth 145 billion dollars, right?
Yeah. You see that, but I can check that for you. Yeah.
Next question. Okay.
The 145 is correct, yes. 190 billion today, 145.
All right. This is Sangeeta Saxena from India Strategic Magazine. I just wanted to understand what is the reaction of the Indian airlines in India for A350?
Well, we believe that the A350, of course, will be an important aircraft for India as we in the coming years. Of course, we have the A330 flying in India today. That is the most efficient mid-size wide-body today, and it will be for quite some time for the missions that it's doing. And as we go along, I think that the A350 can be a very good complement for Indian carriers in the wide-body segment, as it delivers 25% better fuel efficiency compared to the 777.
So is there a requisition from some of these airlines for it?
So in terms of discussions with customers, we are of course very regularly talking to all our customers and prospective customers on all our aircraft types and what they could bring for them going forward. I can't share any details of those discussions.
Thank you.
Some more questions. Any questions on Airbus in India or Airbus cooperation in India?
What is the current? I am Rishi here from Hindu Business Line. What is the current order book you have, and what is the time frame you are looking at deliveries? And could you give different segments? And if you are able to give the value of the order to it.
So in India, in all the years that we've been present in India, as Dwarka said, since the mid 70s, we've received around 600 orders in total from Indian carriers. We still have around 350 aircraft in the order book.
I mean, for the next 20 years, it's in the press release how many aircraft you will need. India is forecast to need.
Yeah. And the deliveries will stretch well into the coming years.
So there was. What about the A380? And also yesterday, Air India was mentioning that they're looking at actually now phasing out a lot of A320s. So are you looking at the leasing option which you mentioned in terms of
sorry, which option?
Leasing
option. I will refrain from comments on the discussions of individual carriers about their fleets going forward. But as you mentioned, I think the A380 will be a very attractive aircraft for India. The largest Indian international routes already larger than quite a few of the routes flown by the A380 today. And with the strong growth that we see in India, we definitely see a place for the A380 in the fleet of Indian carriers in the coming year. In the single aisle segment in the A320, of course, the A320 family has a very strong position in India with a majority share of the market. Indigo, Go Air having a large number of A320 Neos on order, and of course we see continued potential for that for the A320 family in India.
Just to your left,